I unfortunately lost, about $150,000 2 weeks ago in public speaking engagements that were canceled. I know I have to reinvent myself that I'm now doing webinars, Skype calls, podcasts, in the classroom, e-learning. I am going to reinvent Mathew Knowles, and I am going to be the best, one of the best at it, because I'm passionate about reinventing me to this new age. That's the opportunity that a month ago, if we had this conversation, Shawn, it would have been totally different.
So the question is this: how do thought leaders, school dropouts, former and current students find out what's next after they do or don't cross that stage? If you want to know the secrets to starting the career or business of your dreams, getting paid whatever you desire, and discovering what you do the best with the least amount of effort, then this is the right podcast for you. I'm Shawn Anthony, and this is School's Over, Now What? The podcast. Welcome to School's Over, Now What? The podcast, and I'm your host, Shawn Anthony. If this is your very first time clicking that button, whether you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever platform that is, I always want to make sure people know exactly what the show is all about. Each and every single week, we continue to bring you an inspiring person or a message that's truly going to change the game for you. And to get in on the show, they have to have answered the question we've all asked ourselves at some point in our lives. And that is, school's over, now what? And I'm excited because every single week, this show continues to rise. And it is a top 100 show on the business category of all podcasts. So there's over 700,000 of these things, and you guys continue to support. And for that, I am forever grateful. And if you have been a listener of ours so far, you know how I like to kick this thing off with the review of the week. And this one comes from RayJGreen.com. And he wrote, Shawn has great guests and a skill for extracting tidbits we can all use while hosting an entertaining show. Well done. Entertaining and useful. RayJGreen.com, I appreciate you for taking the time to leaving your review. And if you can get anything from this show, it means a lot to me. And if you're listening right now, if you haven't already, and you're listening on iTunes, scroll to the bottom of the screen, click that 5-star rating, and leave your review. This has helped us in tremendous ways, and I can't thank you enough. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Are you thinking of starting a business? You're going to need a website. Or do you have a business but haven't updated your website in over 2 years? Then you need to hear this. Olive Branch Digital will help you create the website of your dreams. They are masters at turning your ideas to responsive websites that get picked up on Google and all the major search engines. Stop wasting time trying to learn the code and visit olivebranchdigital.com. Mention the podcast and get 10% off your website project. This episode is brought to you by www.patreon.com/schoolsover.nowwhat. For as low as $5, you can help us impact more people, tour schools, and reach communities. You also get exclusive Patreon-only content. That's bonus episodes, early access, and be able to go behind the scenes with me and some of our guests. Visit www.patreon.com/schoolsover.nowwhat and become a patron today. All right, let's get into it. I know exactly why you clicked the button today. You've seen who is on this show. And if you are as excited as I am right now to announce our next guest, then you know what time it is. He is the father to two of the biggest superstars and Grammy Award winners in the world, Beyoncé and Solange. He created and put together the most iconic female group of all time, Destiny Child. He's the CEO of Music World Entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, it's none other than Dr. Mathew Knowles. There has been a lot of people on the show, but this particular interview is one I am thrilled to release. This is one for the books. This will be one, if you haven't already, grab the pencil, grab the paper. We're going to talk about things that he has never talked about. The pandemic, which we are all in right now, COVID-19, and how he would respond if you were listening. We talk about Destiny Child. We talk about family, recognizing traits before they are actually put into motion. We talk about passion, PR strategies, media, branding. There's no stone unturned in this interview. Get ready. Episode 97 with the legend and icon, Dr. Mathew Knowles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. And I'm just excited for this one, guys. This next person created the biggest female group of all time, Destiny Child. His daughters, both Beyoncé and Solange Knowles, are Grammy award-winning superstars. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet none other than Dr. Mathew Knowles is on the show today. How are you, man?
I am good, Shawn. We're in Houston. We have a stay-at-home policy in Houston, and folks are adhering to that. And you know, it's a time of change. It's a time of reset, and we're just adapting and changing with the times.
Absolutely. It's such a crazy time at that. And I was thinking about this interview before we hopped on. I've researched a lot of guests, and I've done a lot of research in you. And if we didn't have all this travel restrictions, I told, the other people part of our show and our program, dude, I would have flown to you for this one, man. This is such a big deal to me that we give people knowledge in this time because they're stuck at home, right? And they need those things and not, feel weary or feel doubtful. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. And it really boils down, Shawn, to we have to now alter our behavior.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so I want to ask you before we really get into this, because somebody may have been under a rock and they may have no idea, exactly who Mathew Knowles is. But I want to tap into your mindset in this interview. Take me back, right? Take me back to that kid growing up, because you also grew up in a different time than what we're in today.
Yeah, I love to tell my story, Shawn. I grew up in Gadsden, Alabama, a little small town of about 30,000 people. My parents were poor, although I, as a kid, didn't know they were poor. My dad made $30 a week as a truck driver, and he convinced the owners of the company to let him have that truck and have access to the truck 24/7. My mother was a colored maid. She made $3 a day. So $45 a week is what my parents did on their day job. My mother convinced the white woman she worked for, to give her any hand-me-down clothing, pillows, sheets, anything clothing. And on the weekends, my mother, she would, with her girlfriends, make these beautiful quilts and sell them. Well, my dad, with that truck that he convinced them to let him use, he would go tear down old houses. And then he would sell the wood, he would sell the copper, the metals. Then he would go and buy old cars, and he would sell every part on the car. So I learned entrepreneurship at an early age from my parents. But bear in mind, I lived on a dirt road with an outside bathroom facility until I was 16. Then my mother went to high school with Coretta King and Andrew Young's wife. And my mother had that fire, that torch in her for desegregation. So as a result, Shawn, I'm 68 years old, born in 1952, went to elementary school in 1958, never went to a black school, high school, junior high, elementary, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Didn't go to a black school until my junior year of college. So me and a few others, we really paid a price of desegregation, of being the first to do that.
Wow.
And, thinking about in my life, what's happening to us today is terrible. But I've had other events in my life that have molded me for times like these. This is not some of the tough times I've ever had in life. Someone to tell me, hey, just stay at home. I had some much more challenging times than just staying at home.
Wow. I mean, and that's so crazy, man. I think what you talked about is so important, right? We grow up in a different area where, people are mixed together, right? No matter what their race is. And I'm sure that has impacted you, coming out of, just college and thought process and things like that. And what I think is very interesting about everything you said is the times that we're in. And right now people are like, you know what? I don't want to be home right now. And right now they're listening to this podcast and they want to know, from your perspective, what are some of the things productive you think they should be doing while they're at home?
Well, I think now, first of all, some, not all, I happen to be part of the some. I get to spend my day with my best friend, my wife, who's my best friend. So what better place to share this moment with than a best friend? So I have that opportunity. Some do, many do. But we spend our time, we're communicating more, getting to even know each other more. We've been married 6 years. I've known Gina for 10. We're eating dinners together, lunch together, sitting outside, enjoying nature for the first time. She was a nature lover. I wasn't. Now I'm looking at the trees and things I didn't do before. That I would look at her and say, I don't see what you see. The beauty of the clouds. I don't see that. Now I see the beauty of the clouds. And again, it will never be like it was. We're all going to have to change. I see a lot of families interfacing with their kids now. And then I see people learning. They're learning, they're reading, they're doing workbooks. They're talking to their loved ones and family. I think there's an opportunity for us here. And I think it's important. I'll do it now. I shall share this story if I can, Shawn. I'll be real quick about it.
Oh, please share it.
So I was I used to travel almost every day. And I was in LA going down the escalator at LAX. And at the bottom was a nun from Mexico, and she was a missionary, and she had a jar and it says, please give to the missionary. And so I gave, wasn't judgmental. The nun gave me a card, and this is what I want to share to the viewers and listeners. The card said, pray not for a life free from trouble. Pray for triumph over trouble. What you and I called adversity, God, the universe, whatever name you want to use, calls opportunity. So the question is, right now, while a lot of people are sitting at home, what is the opportunity that's right in front of you? Well, for me, let me tell you the opportunity. I'll speak for me. I thought, I'm a college professor. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing this online learning, e-learning. I love teaching in a class. I love connecting with my students. No, that Zoom thing is stupid, man. Just let me talk to the person. I don't need to see them. I thought that technology, I'm embracing it now. And I see, I unfortunately lost about $150,000 2 weeks ago in public speaking engagements that were canceled. I know I have to reinvent myself that I'm now doing webinars, Skype calls, podcasts, in the classroom, e-learning. I am going to reinvent Mathew Knowles, and I am going to be the best, one of the best at it. Because I'm passionate about reinventing me to this new age. That's the opportunity that a month ago, if we had this conversation, Shawn, it would have been totally different.
Wow. Man, listen, when I say you just gave the whole entire audience a whole different perspective, man. And right now, someone's sitting at home and they don't realize that now is the opportunity, right? Now is the time to really embrace digital. You know, what I think is so interesting, and we'll get into Destiny Child in just a second. What I think is so interesting, as you know, you being in the music industry, I've noticed guys like Timberland and Swiss Beats and Neo and all these other, you know, people in the music industry now are embracing things like Instagram Live. And not only are they embracing it, they're creating almost like shows where people are watching and you see so many people tuned in, right? So many people leaving comments. And I got to ask you, Matt, from your perspective, right? What would you be doing right now if you were a musician, or, you know, let's just say Destiny's Child was wanting to create something right now? What would you be doing in this opportunity?
Well, if it was Destiny's Child, those girls are so good and so polished and so talented and so passionate. At a heartbeat, a phone call, they can be in their living room doing acoustically a whole concert. They wouldn't even need any music. They can do it with music, without music. They're just that good. That's what I would see them doing. Just having a 2-hour acoustic concert, and still they wouldn't have sang about 6 or 7 hit songs because they have so many.
Wow. I mean, I think that's an interesting perspective coming from you, for sure.
And Shawn, think of the economics of all of this. The economics of millions and millions of dollars being saved, because now I don't have a production cost. I don't have a band. I don't have dancers. I don't have road managers, production managers, sound and light people, tour buses, trucks carrying all the set. I'm saving millions of dollars. But the other thing, I can actually, you know, Beyoncé, she can right now fill 100,000 seat stadium. Mm-hmm. Online, she could fill a 10 million seat stadium, online stadium.
And that's so true, man. What I doubt, with the press of a button, she can do those things. And let's talk a little bit about that, right? I think what strikes me the most about you, and I'm excited about having you on the show and tapping into your mindset, is your thought process. So I want to dive into your thought process. I have a daughter and I also have a son. And right now, what's important with this show, it's called School's Over, Now What, right? But a lot of people go on after school to have children. And what strikes me as important in having this conversation with you right now is the things that you did to have your children not only protected from the media, but also give them the ambition and the passion and things that they have currently right now. How did you do those things? And most importantly, I want to ask, what did you install into them?
Well, Shawn, you know, I've always had certain beliefs, and I got those from my parents. You know, I feel the role of a parent is to surround your kid, your child, with all the tools to be successful. I think it's critically important that parents don't instill and make their child, as a college professor, it's the saddest moment when I talk to a student and ask them, why are you here? And they say, because my mom and dad want me to be here. You know, I think it's important to instill in your child that they find their passion, whatever that is, Shawn, and that as parents, we support their passion. We give them the tools. For example, Beyoncé and Solange love entertaining. You guys couldn't shut them up, man. They wanted to dance all night. They want to have concerts. They call them shows. They wanted to have shows all night. They wanted to sing all day, sing all night. From the time they were little babies, that was truly what they love and their passion. So I asked them, obviously, what is it that you just love? And they would all say, Daddy, I want to be a singer. I want to be like Michael Jackson. I want to be an entertainer. I love it. Well, we built a team around them. We got a vocal coach, choreographer, put them in a dance troupe when they were little kids, 5, 6, 7 years old. And the thing is, you as a parent, you know if this child is passionate, because if you ever have to tell them to go to practice, that's a clear indication that it's your passion, not theirs. Let me say that again, parents. If you ever have to tell them to go to practice, that's not their passion. I have never had to tell my kids to go to practice. They always bug the hell out of me. Daddy, you know we got practice in the morning. Hey, Daddy, can you take us to practice? They were passionate about this. The second thing is I instilled in my kids to go and get the tools. Go and get the tools. And I used to say, if Solange or Beyoncé had come to me and said, Daddy, I want to be a doctor, I would have been just as happy and proud. And I would have looked them both in the eye and I would have said, Solange, Beyoncé, when you go to med school, get your medical degree, Dad would have bought a hospital. Think about that. Dad would have bought a hospital. When my former wife, friend Tina, Beyoncé and Solange's mom, for 6 years, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she says, I'm just tired of staying at home. I said, what is your passion? What is that thing that you wake up in the night and go to bed at night thinking about and can't wait to do it? She says, I just like imaging and fashion and hair. I said, well, go get your cosmetology license. When you finish, we'll buy a hair salon. That's my headset. Get the tools, and then be an entrepreneur.
Man, that's so impactful and so important. And I'm glad you touched on that, because you talk about filling passions, right? And fueling those passions. You wrote in your book, Public Relations and Media. So guys, if you haven't picked this book up, I advise you do. Public Relations and Media, PR Strategies for the Digital Age. You had a quote in that book, and I want to read it to our audience. You said, when you live your passion, you never have to work a day in your life. What did you mean by that?
Well, that quote came from my first book, The DNA of Achievers, 10 Traits of Highly Successful Professionals. And I did a research around the country. I fly on a lot of airplanes. I'm fortunate I get to fly first class, and mainly a lot of business men and women fly there. And I always ask the person sitting next to me, what do you do? Well, sometimes you better be careful about doing that, because if you sit next to a passionate person, the good thing is the flight will go real fast. The bad thing is they're going to talk you all the way through the flight. And I listen to these people. They get excited and they love what they did and energize them. And many of us, first of all, don't know the thing that we're passionate about. That thing that we just love, it might not be cool. It might be the opposite of what your best friends, your parents, your neighbors might think you should do. But that's the thing you should be doing. That one thing, and most of the time, nobody really knows it. That one thing that you think about all the time. That's the thing. That's the thing I wanted my kids to do, whatever that was. Look, I'm passionate about speaking and giving knowledge. If I wasn't passionate about this, I wouldn't have done this interview. I don't do anything in my life, Shawn, at 68 years old that I don't want to do. I'm fortunate, blessed, grateful. So that's why passion is so important, because when you do live that passion, you don't work. What I do every day is fun. What my kids do every day, to them is fun. And what coexists with passion is work ethics. Because you find someone who loves what they're doing, energized by what they're doing, it coexists, because what I'm doing is not work. It's fun. So passion and work ethics, they coexist. Now, some people dream a lot, and dreaming is a part of finding your passion, those things you dream about. But then many people, they have $1 million dream, but a minimum wage work ethic. Let me say that again. $1 million dream, but a minimal wage work ethic.
Man.
You about to get me going, Shawn.
Hey, I like it, man, because it's so true, right? Everyone wants to be the next superstar, right? Everyone wants to be a part of things that you've created or wants to be something that they look up to, but they don't want to work for it. And I'm curious to know your thoughts just on, just challenges in general, because you obviously have been very, very successful. So we asked our audience, what are some questions, right? We got Mathew Knowles on the show. What are some questions we should ask him? And then this is some of the things they wanted us to ask. This question came in from Chelsea Hargrave, and she said, being a huge public figure along with your children, what are the biggest challenges that you have faced?
Well, that's a very good question, Chelsea. What comes with celebrity status, and I'm certainly not even close to the celebrity status of my kids, and often in Houston walk around, with no security and, mind my business, and I don't even think about that. But what comes with celebrity status, sometimes it can be somewhat uncomfortable, somewhat annoying. You want to just have a dinner with you and your wife, and, people want to take photos and pictures. But that comes with it, and you have to be polite, and you have to have rules, and you stand by whatever your rules are about that. The other thing that comes with public figure, because I feel gratitude with having the opportunity to be a public figure, is that I can give feedback into policies and hopefully effectively help change policies and ideas and use that platform for the benefit of good, not the benefit of bad. I think the other thing that comes with celebrity status, Chelsea, is that there's a camera on you at all times. It took me a while to understand that, but there's a camera. I used to think that was a difference in your public life and your private life. I used to say, man, that's my private life. But it's not. Mm-hmm. True integrity is off and on the camera. That's true integrity. So those are some of the things that come with it.
Without a doubt, man. And I gotta agree with you on that one. And you gotta have those things to be successful. So I want to read the next question that came in. It came in from Corey. And it says, before your children became huge public figures, and they really want to know this, before your children became huge public figures, we kind of touched on this a little bit. How did you continue to protect them? You think about all these things that come out, right? Whether it's the media, TMZ, how did you continue to protect them and even protect the group Destiny Child from just scandals and their business and things like that?
Well, another good question. I'm so proud that you look back and the biggest, if you want to say scandal, let me just go back a little, Corey. When the first album came out of Destiny's Child, we could not get the media to write any stories or ask the girls to come on TV. And I was totally frustrated as a manager. Why is it that nobody wants to talk to these girls in the media? Finally, someone's truthful to me. They said, Mr. Knowles, your girls are just too good. They little too goody shoe girls. There's no drama. We need drama. So, the ladies, part of our artist development includes media training. And in that media training, obviously, is the ability to communicate on and off the stage in front of a microphone. But it talks about things that you should do and not do and things to be aware of. Let me give you an example. About 7 years ago, there's a favorite restaurant, and I'll give them a shout out because all these restaurants are closed in Houston, but it's called Brasserie B19 in Houston. And I love their oysters. So at lunchtime, I used to go get me a dozen oysters, read my emails by myself outside, not bothering anybody. Nobody bothers me. So this car comes up and it was a limo. We're talking 10 years ago. And a guy comes out, and he's obviously a handler. He's like her publicist. And he says, Mr. Knowles, Mr. Knowles. And I can't even remember the young lady's name, but you all will know. She wants to get a photo with you. And I said, well, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm just having lunch, eating my oysters. I just don't want to be bothered reading my emails. It's a time for me to catch up. And he said, thank you. He came back. Mr. Knowles, she said, you do know she is, right? You do know she's on the Housewives of Atlanta. And I said, well, sorry, young man, I don't watch, that show. I don't know who that person is. He went back to the car. He came back. He says, like, she really just want to take and at that point, I'm like, look, man, just come on. Let's just do a quick photo, and please let me get back to what I'm doing. She came out, said hello. I couldn't tell you her name. I just don't watch that show. So next 2 days, I get all these Google alerts. My publicist is calling me. What happened in Houston? I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, the news now is you are having an affair with one of the housewives of Atlanta. I don't even know the lady's name to this day. I'm like, and you can Google this. You just Google Mathew Knowles brasserie, Housewives of Atlanta. I don't know, but it was a setup. I got set up, and so we train our artists all the things, the good, the bad, and the ugly that could happen, and what to look out for in the media. And also to know how to get your story across. Media has an agenda that they want to get a story across, and that's good. That's good. But you have to learn how to weave your story inside of the interview. They're selling advertising. The media's always selling advertising. Content is the mechanism of which they sell advertising. And you have something you're selling.
Hey guys, so let me take a guess. You're enjoying the show. And if that's right, please make sure that you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast right now and tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _. I promise you this is going to help in amazing ways. And while you're at it, hit the 5-star rating and subscribe. With that being said, guys, let's get back to the show. Yeah, without a doubt. It's so funny. As you're talking about it, I'm pulling it up. The Phaedra Parks came up, all type of things came up with Atlanta Housewives. So thank you for sharing that story, man. And that's so true. And people are always wanting to push the lever, right? They always want to say, okay, this has happened. This is going to happen. They need this scandal. They need this story. And what I like so much about you is how you've been able to navigate, right, throughout all the media talks. And right now, someone's listening to this podcast and they want to get more coverage. They want to get more media. What's any of your tips and suggestions on how to do that within their business?
Well, I think, first of all, are they ready to be in front of the camera? What is the story? We're in a storytelling world. So it starts out, what's the story? You want to get in front of the media? Okay, you're in front of the media. What is a compelling story that engages the audience to want to listen? That's the question that they have to ask.
Man, without a doubt.
The second thing is, if you have an engaging story, and some people have to work on creating the story, and I talk about that in my media public relations book, but if you have a story now today, there are so many avenues and mechanisms, social media being one, that you can get out your story the way you want to get it out. And it's your story. History, the word history really means his story. And a lot of the reasons, people ask me, why would you want to go on Wendy Williams? I said, I'm looking forward. I'm excited to go on Wendy Williams because I knew what I was going up against. And it was an opportunity for me to tell my story, not his story. See, I'm going around the world telling my story because I don't want, when I leave this earth, that people are telling his story. I want them to tell my story.
Man, I think everyone's story is so unique and different. And what's cool about that is right now, someone's relating to your story more than they're relating to mine. And you're tapping into that energy, right? You're tapping
Right.
into the fact that they know, it's okay. Another book that you wrote that really caught my interest is The Racism from the Eyes of a Child. And in that book, you talk about the level of racism in the radio industry. What exactly did you mean by that? And do you still believe that it exists?
Well, it's the level of racism that's in the radio, music, entertainment industry. It does not exist to the level that it used to exist. And I use examples of colorism. And Black folks, we understand what colorism is that sometimes just the shades of our skin color, the tone of our color, gets some Black people through the door a different way than someone who's of darker complexion. I had one of my classes at Texas Southern because I'm really about research and facts. I'm the guy you don't want to do a debate with if you haven't researched and got your facts together, because I'm going to dominate you. So we researched and we found out that in modern times, Mariah Carey era, around those years, every woman, female, Black female, in pop radio who had made to the top 10 on the Billboard charts were all of a lighter complexion.
Wow.
All of a lighter complexion. All played on pop radio, even more so lighter complexion. The beauty about R&B and urban radio, they do allow all of our sisters to be played and heard on for the most part. But when you get into top 40 pop radio, and when you look at these record labels and you look at the marketing budgets, the A&R budgets, I was at Columbia. I had 3 white artists and 3 Black artists that I managed at the same time. I had 4 boys that I had on Columbia Records. Their name is Signature. I actually still have their catalog, so you can go stream Signature. These guys sound like Boys to Men. Sygnture, Signature. These guys' budget was larger than Destiny's Child. And wow. Destiny's Child was on their second album. And these guys was on their first album. So the budgets aren't the same. How radio and TV is not the same. Now, it's gotten better. It's gotten better. Lizzo is a great example of that. But I do believe that's a one-off. I don't think that'll be the norm.
Yeah. And also sometimes when you pay attention to things like that, it's almost like they allow for a certain person that doesn't fit the norm to stand out and be just that one polarizing figure. It's very, very interesting that you say that. And I'm curious, just from your perspective right now, someone who doesn't have those numbers that you mentioned, right? They don't have the upside and the statistical information that you've discovered, and they're still trying to stand out. What would be your tips on that?
That's difficult. I would suggest to them that they would do as many webinars. See, again, this is the beauty of what's happening today. It's going to change our behavior. See, before a month ago, I would have answered, they need to go to every seminar in America. Well, that required ticket or driving, gasoline, hotel. Now you can go to every webinar in the world that's on the music industry. Where before you only had one thing maybe every 2 weeks, now you have 10 things a day around the world that you can connect to about the music industry. That will be my next steps. Just webinars. I'll do Today might be artist management. Tomorrow it might be entrepreneurship. But now you can get information so much faster, quicker. It's amazing and it's a wonderful thing. Change is amazing if you alter your behavior, if you modify and adjust, then change is beautiful.
By far. Like, and you mentioned alter behaviors, right? I mean, neither one of us have a crystal ball and we can't predict when this will all be over. But from your opinion, what businesses do you feel like come out of this struggling?
Quite frankly, most small businesses will come out of this struggling. And that definition of small business is 50 employees or less. Then 50 to 500 kind of gets you in that medium-sized business, and then 500 and more gets you into a major business. But it's those of us that are 50 and smaller, those restaurants. Again, we've altered the behavior. In the future, you'll just call in your order much faster and sooner than going to a restaurant. But that could be, from a profitability standpoint for the restaurant owner, that could be a wonderful thing, because now I don't have all these servers. I don't have this utility bill as much. The equipment, chairs. So my break-even analysis might look better doing a drive-through. Look at the hair and beauty industry. That's going to change. If we continue to have these stringent guidelines of safe distance, a lot of people aren't going to be going to wherever there's a group of people. And so I can see the transition even more. My barber comes to me. I can see that part of his business growing even more. And the beauty for him, he charges $100 when he gives me a haircut. He charges $20 when someone comes to his building. Well, he's got to pay rent in that building. So his overhead would be reduced considerably by just going to people's home. So I see opportunity in everything, Shawn. I don't see the window half full. I see when bad stuff happens, that prayer has taken me since 1982. And that prayer is what I say every time. What is the opportunity inside of this?
That's powerful, man. It's funny. We've talked about so far in the show, just webinars, technology, and all these different tech things. It's funny that you mentioned barbers. I've had a couple of barbers reach out to me and say, "Hey, Shawn, how should I brand myself? What should I be doing?" Right now, I mean, if you're listening to this and if you are, aspiring barber, or as we've already alluded to, your shop's been closed and you're traveling to homes, maybe now's the time to create that webinar and that course and show people, hey, this is how you can cut your hair from home, which could also be another creative form of income. So, man, I think that's pretty cool that you touched on that subject.
Well, I teach entrepreneurship as well. And this semester I'm at Prairie View A&M, HBCU. Glad to be there. Great university. But when I talk about entrepreneurship and that example of what does that barber do now, I call it the who, the what, the why. Who is my customer? What is my product? Why should they buy it? I'm that professor that my classes are full because I'm not that professor that's trying to use 20-syllable words and impress people. I don't ever use a book because I say this without ego. I am the book, what I talk about. So I don't need a book. But who is his customer? He needs to redefine who his customer is, because some of his customers aren't going to come to someone's home, nor is he wanting to go to their home. So do you want to redefine yourself as the barber of professional men? Do you want to redefine yourself as the barber to the stars? One of those, or a combination, you have to have a mission statement that tells exactly who you are and who your customers are. So that's the who. What is your product? What makes you different? Well, I'm going to come to your house. Other than that, what makes you different? Is it your equipment is different? Your pricing is different? What makes you different than anyone else? And the why. Why should I buy from you? Why should I let you into my home? Have you convinced me of the who and the what? So it's really simplistic as that. The who, the what, the why. If I was that barber, I would start looking at professional men, specifically professional black men, if he's a black barber, because you got to identify what your marketplace is. And I would just easy to get information. I would find a list of successful black men in Houston. I would find 10 successful black men and I would give them their haircut free for a month. Because I know that because they're successful, they have a lot of people. They are opinion leaders and people listen to them. And I would give it to them free so they could tell all their buddies, hey man, Mathew Knowles, he's a hell of a barber. He comes to my house. And charge him. Those people like to say, he charged me $150, man. That's what I would do.
You are giving away free game. I hope somebody listening right now, they got they pencil, they paper, they writing down all these tips, man. And what's so intriguing about having this conversation with you, it's quite obvious, man. You know how to put things together. You know how to position people in the right place. And I mean, let's be honest, you know how to create superstars. Did you, going through what you have in life, right? In the music industry, like, did you know from the very get-go, did you know Beyoncé and Solange, did you know they were going to be superstars?
That's a really good question. I mean, I had the confidence and the belief that they were going to be great. Now, did I know that? If I knew that, I would be in another business. I would be in a predictable business. I would make billions of dollars because I could talk to you, Shawn, and I could tell you exactly what you're going to be. That's a pretty difficult thing. But I put the tools, and Tina put the tools around them, and they were gifted and talented and passionate about what they did, and they listened. And with all of those tools around them, that's part of it. But one of the things we have not talked about, Shawn, is my corporate life. I did 20 years of corporate life. I worked 10 years at Xerox, and we're talking 1978 to 1988. I was in the engineering division. Very few blacks were there. I sold copiers for 1 year, which is what Xerox was noted for. But for 8 years, I sold zero radiography, which was the leading modality for breast cancer detection. Mm-hmm. I was 3 out of 4 years the number one sales rep in the world.
Wow.
And then also, when you get to that high level, my president of Xerox left. He went to Philips, and then he took his number one sales rep with him. So I then had the opportunity to be one of the first blacks in America to sell CT and MRI scanners for Philips Medical Systems. Did extremely well in that. Then headhunters calling me every day, and I ended up my career 4 years with Johnson & Johnson as a neurosurgical specialist. I have a very unique background that most people don't have. You have to know your product when you're selling MRI, mammography equipment, and you're in an operating room with someone's head wide open, and you're talking to the neurosurgeon and telling him how to use a new instrument that he's using. That's a little different than making a mistake in music. Mm. That's number one. Man. That's number one.
Let's dive into that. And I'm glad you brought it up. So you learn a lot in the corporate world, right? You learn a lot explaining your product, explaining your details. So are you saying because you went to the corporate world, this is important. I want the audience to know right now how important this conversation we're having, this topic we're having right now, how important it is. Are you saying right now, because you were input in the corporate world, you rose to the highest of heights, you've learned so much about products. Are you saying you use those same skills from the corporate world into entrepreneurship and moving forward and being successful with the group and with your children and all those things that you continue to create? Are you saying that has been a huge key player?
I'm saying absolutely 100%. It taught me sales. It taught me marketing. It taught me financials because I'm selling an MRI unit that's $5 million. So I'm working with the chief financial CFO of the hospital and the administrator. I'm selling a piece of product that's highly technical. I'm working with the chief radiologist in the radiology department. I'm selling a piece of equipment that is highly technical procedure, and I'm dealing with the neurosurgeon, which is the top. And look at all the surgery change. The most paid is neurosurgery. So it taught me how to have a long selling cycle. It taught me how to brand and market a product. It taught me all of those things, how to build relationships. It taught me all of that.
Man, you know what's so crazy about this conversation is a lot of entrepreneurs, people that I interact with, they don't get that concept. And what I think is important, like myself, like coming out of college, and a lot of people know this about my story. When I was 14, I started throwing these crazy parties, making thousands of dollars. I went off to college and I saw everybody leaving, Matthew. I saw everybody leaving and going off, and I'm like, you know what? The parties are over. How can I take the skill set that I've learned? And I transferred it over and I became corporate. So I went corporate. Those of you who've been listening, you know my story. I went corporate for 4 years. I was promoted 6 times in 4 years. And it happened when I got promoted and I was away from my family and I was driving 6 hours to work each day. When I started to realize some of those same things that you just mentioned, what I was capable of and why I was getting promoted. I was communicating with people. I was pulling people together. I was reaching out to resources people didn't know existed, and people were gravitating to me for conversation, and which has all led to this podcast. And it's all led to me communicating and talking to people like yourself. So I think it is so crazy, but also a very good point in the show where we have someone like yourself telling people that it's okay to go that route, obtain the knowledge, and move forward.
It's absolutely what your path is. Make sure that you have input into your path. Let me tell you the other big thing that I learned from corporate America. When I worked with Philips Medical Systems, they were based in Eindhoven, right outside of Amsterdam. It taught me that the world is bigger than the 340,000 Americans that we have. When we look at the 7.5 billion people in the world, would you rather sell to the 7.5 billion people or 340 million people? I think we always say 7.5 billion people. So it changed my whole approach, which is why all of my artists, Destiny's Child, Solange, Beyoncé, Shaka Khan, I can go on, sell more records outside of America. Most people are so nearsighted and their behavior is so localized that they don't understand that more opportunity exists outside of the United States of America.
Man. And that's so true. And because everyone's so like, you know what, I'm just going to stick to what I have here in America and not knowing that outreach, which I think is also an important conversation as well. What I like so much about this time is that it's allowing creators to think differently. So if you're listening right now to this show, to touch on Matthew's point, in podcasting in general, our show has crazy downloads in over 30 countries that we haven't even visited. So I think you got to really tap into that, man.
Absolutely.
Here's a thought process, and I really want to ask you this: is you have all this success, right? You've done everything you can imagine. People are well aware of what your impact and influence has been. What has been the biggest reward for you personally?
Well, I can answer that very easily. My biggest award is that I and Tina Knowles raised two wonderful young ladies named Beyoncé and Solange that you never hear doing any dumb stuff, stupid stuff, that treat the janitor with kindness and respect the same way they would do the president. That they're just good people who work very hard on their craft, who love their fans, and they wake up in the morning for entertainment, and they go to bed at night for entertainment, and they want to be the very best that they can be. That makes me proud.
That's powerful. I mean, and as a father listening and have this conversation with you, that's truly what it's all about, right? It's all about how do I take what I've learned and give it, right? And give it to those people that I love and care for the most. You touched on something that is important right now, during this whole crazy time of the world. And that's really, going through passion, not only just going through passion, but having a strong work ethic. What was it for you that created the work ethic you have currently right now? And then what's something about maybe Solange or Beyonce's work ethic that people don't know about?
Well, my work ethic for me started, I saw my parents work very, very hard. That was determination. That's different than passion. As slaves, we worked very, very hard. That wasn't because we were passionate to go and pick master's cotton every day. That was because we had no choice. So there's different reasons why people work hard. I work hard because, again, it goes back to what I said earlier, and the same for Beyoncé and Solange, I'm sure. I'm just passionate. I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love giving my knowledge, sharing my knowledge. I love sharing my mistakes. I love what I do. I love seeing people be successful. I love getting emails and phone calls that say, Dr. Knowles, I just want to let you know I didn't understand what you used to say in class, that I could be the very best, but I have to believe I want to be the very best. I didn't understand that, but now I do. Dr. Knowles, I didn't understand what you meant by building relationships. I love that. And so I get to enjoy my day on my terms. Nobody makes me do anything. My day is because I want to do it. And that's where hopefully your listeners can get one day. That you define your destiny.
Man, without a doubt. I want to ask you the question. I'm curious at your take on this. This is the question we've asked every single person that's been on this show. That is, if you were that former college student, right? Or whether, you didn't even graduate at all, you dropped out, and you were asking yourself the question of the podcast, school's over, now what? What advice would Dr. Mathew Knowles give?
Well, I went to college, and I graduated from Fisk University in 1974. But I had a degree one day, because I graduated in December. I had a degree, but I didn't have a job. Actually, I had 2 degrees. I had one in economics and one in business administration. I had not prepared myself for the day after graduation, or the day I decided to drop out of school, or the day that I quit, whatever your situation. But for me, I hadn't prepared for that day. And so I share with young people, those that do go to college, the most important class that you can ever take is internship, that you can go and hands-on experience, because that's, as owners, as corporate leaders, we hire people with experience, not so much degrees. Now, there's certain areas that degrees will get you a job. And look, I'm a college professor, so I am all about getting a degree, but I'm more so about getting knowledge. Do you have a mentor? Someone that you can say, I had a mentor. In my first book, DNA of Achievers, was Worth Davis. He was the branch manager of Xerox in Houston. I learned his patterns. I would go to the office at 6:30 in the morning because he got there at 6:45. It would be the Wall Street Journal at the door. I would steal the Wall Street Journal, take it to my cubby hole, and I would read it. And then eventually, about 5 days of doing that, Worth started walking around looking to see who had his Wall Street. It came, wasn't but a couple of us there that early in the morning. He was like, Knowles, come to my office. And I'm like, is he going to fire me? What's going to happen? And he says, well, why do you have my Wall Street? Well, sir, I just read the business section. I just wanted to be up on what are some of the business decisions being made and what are some of the business changes. And he says, I like that. He says, I tell you what, Knowles, I want you to read the business section of the Wall Street. And every morning, 7:30, you sit down and you tell me what's in it. That'll save me from having to read it, and you'll learn. So I did that for months. Then one day I said, now he asked me actually, he says, Knowles, what do you want to do here at Xerox? You're young. I only been with the company like 6 months. He says, you're young. What do you want to do? I said, Worth, I want to be the number one sales rep at Xerox. I want to be the best sales rep ever. And Worth, I'm asking you, would you please help me? That's the way you ask it, with humility, humble. Would you please help me? I want to be the best. Who's going to say no to that? Who's going to say no to somebody that humbly says, I love what I do. I want to be the very best at it. Would you please help me? So then this is what happened. Worth then had me go to these board meetings. Now, again, I'm right out of college. I've never been to a board meeting. I have no idea what happens in a board meeting. We go to these meetings and it'll be 10, 15 older to me. Now, I'm in my 20s, so anybody 60 is old. That's since changed now that I'm 68. But these old white men were all in a room. And they, he would ask me to, Knowles, go get us some coffee. Knowles, go make some copies of this. And, I would do it and I would sit and I would listen. And then eventually one day they asked me my opinion of something. And obviously I must have answered it right. And then they said, well, Knowles, you can come sit here at the table. And I say this in my book, The DNA of Achievers. They were only the presidents of Pennzoil, Exxon, Shell. I got that kind of experience by asking somebody would they mentor me.
Wow. I think, man, what you just said has been maybe the biggest eye-opener of the show for a lot of people listening is to not be afraid, right? And to say in the most humble way possible, hey, I want to be the best at something, and can you help me? And be surprised the people who will embrace you, which is what that story right there is all about.
And you're absolutely right, because those of us who have had some success, that makes us feel so honored that somebody would say to us, would we please help them be the best? How could you say no to that? So I'm saying to people, you'll be surprised how easy this is.
Without a doubt, man. And I thank you so much for just coming on the show today, dropping some amazing knowledge, embracing, just being on this right now. And I want people to find out more about you. And I want you to just provide us with all of the contact information. How can they find you on social media?
I tell everyone, you can go to one place and pretty much everything is there. My website is MathewKnowles.com. So you only have to remember my name. And Mathew is with one T. Maybe on the next show, Shawn, it's a long story surrounded by racism, why my name is one T and my dad is two and his middle name is different. I thought I was Mathew Knowles Jr. for years, but I'll save that for another day. But go to MathewKnowles.com. You'll be able to click through all of my social media there at the top. You'll be able to go and review the 5 books that I have. The DNA of Achievers, which was a bestseller at Amazon, Racism from the Eyes of a Child, that tells my life story growing up. And it's no coincidence if I was the first Black in elementary, junior high, high school, college. I was also the first Black selling zero radiography, selling MRI and CT scanners, being a neurosurgical specialist. I don't think that's by happenstance. Then I have the book, The Emancipation of Slaves Through Music, and it chronologizes that trip, that journey that our brothers and sisters took from Africa. That was a 2.5 year journey, and they were from different tribes, and they couldn't communicate. And so it was through music, stomping on the floors, humming, crying, that they began to communicate effectively. And when they got on that slave field, they would sing those songs, and the master would think they were happy, when in fact they were sorrow songs to get through the day, but they were encoded with ways to escape. The master didn't know that. That's what that book is about. Then we've talked about media and public relations. And then in December, I put out Destiny's Child, the untold story. Going back to his story versus my story, I wanted this to be accurate, because so many different versions of what happened and how Destiny's Child came about. This is the true version. And I have those that were there, I interviewed. So all of those books that you can buy on my website, I will sign and autograph those for you. I also have audiobooks available. Racism from the Eyes of a Child's audiobook on Audible. The others will be up in the next 30 days. And I just, because of this coronavirus, discounted my books 50% so that the readers could really have opportunity to get whatever number of books they wanted. So MathewKnowles.com.
That's amazing, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. I can't wait for the next time we do this. It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be in person, and I appreciate you for jumping on today. And for those of you that have been listening, always remember: dream it, believe it, go out and get it. Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at Shawn R. Anthony _, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know, and while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.